Tinubu never created a militia. Tinubu is one of the foremost politicians in Nigerian history.
Tinubu and his people created
democracy.
a militia. Who said those words, Daniel?
Tinubu has helped in strengthening democracy in
Tinubu
Nigeria.
and his people created a militia, Daniel. Who said those words?
Tinubu brought in leadership
skills
into governance.
Tinubu and his people created a militia. Who said those words?
Tinubu and his people never created the militia.
So why did you say they did on January 22nd, 2023?
I never said that.
The candidate of All Progressives Congress, Bwala Tinubu, and his people created a militia. This is the first time in the history of Nigeria we're seeing a political party creating a militant arm leading to election.
Does he have a militia that tried to kill you?
He doesn't have. I never said he tried to kill me.
I myself have received threats from him and his camp. Your words.
I never said that.
There is also this threat to life, and I can tell you that because I myself have received threats from Asiwaju and his camp.
You said it was so corrupt, the 2023 election, Tinubu's win, you said that you couldn't eat food for 3 days.
I never said that. Where?
And legitimate complaints were raised all over Nigeria. That part is what threw me off balance. In fact, I became so sick. For the past 3 days, I found it very hard eating food.
Tinubu is not just super rich. It's what he does with his wealth. In 2019, 2 armored money trucks, bullion vans, were seen going into his house, coming out of his house. Where did that money go?
No. Point, did you see the money? Or those who reported, did they see money inside the bullion van?
Was there no money in the bullion vans?
How am I to know?
You said it was money in the vans at the time,
I never
2023, February.
But there is only one person in Nigeria who is alleged to have moved money through bullion vans, and that person is on their ballot as the presidential candidate.
On the eve of the presidential elections, 2 cash-laden bullion vans, your words, were seen on the premises, which was ostensibly for vote buying. Your words, January 22nd, 2023. Have you just disowned everything you've said in order to work for this president?
I'm coming. What you just said now, I want to put it on record, on my own honor. That's not what I said.
Last question from me, Daniel. I know you don't trust any polls, but most Nigerians, I think, would agree. The ones that are in your favor, of course. But most polls show that Nigerians are very unhappy with politics, with the government, with the establishment. They're very unhappy about corruption. President Tinubu campaigned under the slogan, "It's my turn," which many critics would say is symbolic of the Nigerian establishment, that people just hand out jobs between themselves. You said in 2022 that...
All right, I said I will add my voice to what Daniel Bwala suffered. In fact, it's a very big blow, and it should serve as a lesson to people that will see black and call it white. Daniel Bwala is from Borno State, and he's a lawyer. I wonder how the fellow lawyers will be looking at him this time around. And Daniel Bwala is from Borno State. Borno State, you know, Borno State, Northeast, where that's the heart of insurgents. That is where he come from. And he was sent on the job to go and defend Nigeria, that nothing is happening. Basically, he went there to defend Nigeria, that there is no insecurity and terrorism, and to defend Nigeria on international reputation and human rights violation activities. That is why he went there. If not, I would have asked what carried him to Al Jazeera. He did not ask questions or what, or he thought Al Jazeera is the NTA News Channel 8. Yeah? Oh my God. Well, that is like I said, that is a very big lesson to our people. Daniel Bwala has been against Tinubu. All of a sudden, he jumped and entered Tinubu's camp, and he has suffered this blow. Well, I do not want to bore you with so many talk. Let's go into the details and see what really happened. We have to analyze these things.
2023, Bola Ahmed Tinubu is elected president of Nigeria, promising to tackle the nation's widespread insecurity and address 2 of its root causes, poverty and corruption.
Christianity is facing an existential threat in Nigeria.
Nearly 3 years later, international attention is back on the country, with the US launching strikes as a, quote, Christmas present, claiming Nigeria is failing to stop a genocide against its Christian population. But whilst the Nigerian government denies these claims, there's no disputing that wider insecurity is spreading. My guest tonight was once one of the president's fiercest critics, but now serves as his official spokesperson and special advisor, defending the president's efforts to renew hope for Nigeria. I'm Mehdi Hassan, and tonight I go head-to-head with Daniel Bwala. I'll challenge him on Trump's Christian genocide claims, the Nigerian government's failures to protect its own people, and whether President Tinubu profits from corruption. I'll also be joined by a panel of experts. Anu Adeoye, a journalist with the Financial Times, Aisha Osori, a lawyer and development expert with Open Society Foundations, and Tunde Doherty, chairman of the APC ruling party's UK. Daniel Bwala, thank you so much for joining me on Head to Head.
Thank you.
And the people present there were clapping hands. You can hear the loudness of the hands. They were clapping, thinking that they are going to see the unseen today. Well, but they are right. You know, even when the APC person in charge of, people in diaspora is there, Tunde, somebody they call him, other powerful journalists, they are all present.
Nigeria is a proud, sovereign, independent nation, a powerhouse in Africa. So why did you just let Donald Trump and the United States bomb your country on Christmas Day?
The United States government did not bomb our country. The decision by the US government was anchored on the intelligence sharing between Nigeria and the United States and the agreement on the operation.
So Donald
He started by saying that Nigeria is a powerful sovereign nation. Where is your sovereignty? That is what he's trying to say. Hassan, that is what he's telling us. Where is your sovereignty? And look at this man, he's defending Nigeria. Meanwhile, why would you be in cooperation with US before US can now bomb your country? Why didn't you do the Albi Nigeria no get bomb? We don't get anything to attack the militia. Look at this man.
Donald Trump just didn't bomb Nigeria at his own whim.
No. The US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, called our own foreign affairs minister when the decision was made that that was the time to strike, and the foreign affairs minister got in touch with the president.
So this was a joint operation, you're saying?
Yes, it was a joint operation. On the Nigerian...
What I don't understand is, how can it be a joint operation? Yeah. Donald Trump says that there is a genocide going on against Christians carried out by Muslims with your government turning a blind eye. You've called that narrative a hoax. Mm-hmm. You said it creates discord in Nigeria.
Right. So
when Donald Trump says he's bombing Nigeria to protect Christians from a genocide, is he lying?
We both disagree as to whether the so-called genocide in Nigeria was against Christians. We believe that it is a targeted killing by insurgents, Boko Haram bandits, and all of these criminal elements against the people of Nigeria, Christians, Muslims, and those who have not identified with any religion. Donald Trump believed it is Christians. We now felt, rather than arguing about whether it is against Christians or not, there is one area we both agree, that we have a joint interest in the fight against terrorism.
But you're fine with the fact that his motivation is something you disagree with?
The major point is that there is no commensurate effort to stop this genocide, to stop this terrorism, the case of Nigerians that is happening. That is the major point. But record has is that more Christians have been targeted than any other religion. And record has it now that Nigeria is the worst place for Christians to live. That is the point.
You think it's a hoax?
Yes, because...
So when Donald Trump says there is a genocide against Christians in Nigeria, is he telling the truth?
It is a half-truth.
Okay, and the man is saying that US, Donald Trump, is saying half-truth. The US that has their military and their planes in Nigeria, he said they are saying half-truth. Mind you that these people are not like Nigerians. They have their records. They have gotten their facts ready. So let's see what happens.
In the sense that, yes, Christians have been affected. But the whole truth is that both Christians, Muslims, and those who have not identified. I said the narrative of Christian genocide was a hoax.
He's pushing it.
That's his opinion. Everybody's entitled to it.
Is he right or wrong?
We believe there is a targeted killing of all Nigerians. Okay. Evidence has shown. And that is where we are focused on fighting terrorism.
So let's talk about the terrorism.
Right.
Trump claimed he targeted, quote, ISIS terrorist scum.
Right.
And every camp got decimated. But a lot of investigative reporting on the ground shows that few, if any, combatants were killed. Some bombs landed in empty fields. A local leader in one of the districts said, the same militants we knew are still there, loitering around our communities.
No, there were killings of terrorists.
That's not what local leaders
So
are
I
saying.
can call local television that testified. Arise News did, Channels Television did.
Okay.
So there was the killing of
Well, you're not on the
terrorists in
ground
that
with
place.
respect.
No, I didn't.
Al-Haji Bunu, who's a traditional ruler in the district, says, we saw no dead bodies, even where the bombs fell. Those are his words.
No, because the bomb didn't fall in the town. It was at the camp, that enclave, where they gather.
Are you okay with having the Americans bomb Nigerian people's homes?
I'm not aware of that one.
You're not aware of Moroniki Saka, who said, I began to scream for help. I had to crawl my way out of the room. The missile tore through her apartment building, according to the Washington Post. How about Musa Soliu? I was in my room. I was buried under the ruins. I don't know how to restart my life. My belongings are destroyed.
Houses were not destroyed.
Are you telling us that Nigerian citizens are lying about being bombed by the US?
I am saying that the military operation that was conducted on that day was targeted as terrorists, and we hit them.
You have a history of not hitting terrorists and hitting civilians. You know that, right? Your country.
I'm not aware.
Oh, well, on December 21st, the Nigerian Air Force said that they handed over compensation to people who were hit in an accidental airstrike on Christmas Day 2024. Do you just bomb every Christmas?
When and when?
Christmas Day 2024 and Christmas Day 2025.
I dispute that fact.
We'll take it up with the Nigerian Air Force. Let me ask you this. Since President Tinubu came to office in 2023, the situation has worsened in your country. You have a mixture of militant groups, you have bandits, you have clashes between herders and farmers.
We also have
Nigeria is now
incursion of foreign interest in Nigeria.
I'm sure. Nigeria is now the 5th deadliest country in the world. Are you proud of that record?
I acknowledge the fact that we have insecurity in Nigeria, and until the hoax narrative of the Christian genocide, then we began to see back-to-back attack in Nigeria. We had, for the first 2 years of the president's administration, a substantial peace in Nigeria.
Actually, the number of deaths went up on the president's watch.
After this incident of a Christian genocide. And by the way,
when did that begin?
There is no country of the world today that is free from insecurity.
No,
there
I
are
agree.
parts of London
that's why
you can't go in the evening.
Okay, but we're not bombing London to root out militant training camps.
But you have had so many of the bombing on behalf of the United Kingdom by the United States.
Here, since you're making rather spurious comparisons.
No, the context is
11,000 people were killed in conflict in Nigeria in 2025. That is up from 8,700 in 2023. That is a 26% increase in the number of Nigerians killed since your party and your president came to office. That's a pretty awful record.
It's awful. And we're fighting hard day and night. But that's one of the reasons why the president traveled to Turkey, where we had bilateral agreement to deal with insecurity. That's why we're cooperating with the United States of America. That's why we're cooperating with any country of the world.
All right, the president traveled to Turkey to have a bilateral agreement, but why would they wait for US to bring in their military men, to bring in their warplanes into Nigeria before they know that they will travel to Turkey for bilateral agreement to protect Nigeria?
The reason is because since 9/11, terrorism is a global phenomenon.
Agreed.
And so every country is involved in it.
But it's getting worse in Nigeria, that's the problem.
I can't say it is getting worse.
You just agreed with me when I gave you the numbers.
No, I said
8,700 killed in 2023,
right.
11,000 killed in 2025. That's getting worse.
How many people were killed in the United States last year?
In conflict-related violence, probably.
So this is not a conflict. This is an act of terrorism.
Okay. So how many people were killed in the United States in terrorism?
Excuse me, sir.
It wasn't 11,000.
This is part of what Donald Trump many years ago in his first term classified the Western media as fake news. The reason is because context matter.
This is not Western media.
You are well aware.
This is not Western media.
Yes, I understand. But
this is the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data, ACLED, the most respected group that counts conflict-related violence around the world.
Let me ask you, where there is a terrorist
attack, I could also give you another source.
Conflict?
I mean, National Human Rights Commission. This is a Nigerian group. 2,266 people were killed by bandits or insurgents in the first half of 2025. That's more than were killed in all of 2024. You are failing. Amnesty International says you are failing at security. The numbers don't lie.
It's unfortunate, and as a government,
and it's getting worse.
We're working day and night
and it's
to
getting
deal with
worse.
that situation. I don't agree to the fact that it's getting worse.
How can it not get worse if more people die in 1 year than the previous year?
Well, the record may not be a big deal to them because their plan is not about the record. Their plan is not about how many people killed. The plan is the agenda that some people are carrying out. Are they achieving the agenda? Yes. If you want to remain in power, you should leave us alone. That is why the figures don't matter.
Context matters.
What's the context?
The context is not getting worse.
What?
Yes.
The context is not getting worse?
The context is that it is not getting worse because you see, this is a water, right?
Okay.
If you have the water half, you could say half glass filled or half empty.
Yeah.
Isn't it right?
Yeah.
So the Western media always see Nigeria, Africa, and some of the activities in Africa as half empty. Excuse me. But we see it as half full because when we look at it, and when I say context matter, before the president took the oath of office, we knew the situation in Nigeria.
And you made it worse.
When he made the decision to take bold step to put Nigeria in better trajectory, we were well aware of the fact that it was going to incense lots of people.
Okay.
We are also
You've
aware...
made your point. I get the glass half full. I get the context. I also understand basic mathematics. Let me ask you this. President Tinubu only declared a national emergency in November of 2025, brought in a raft of policy changes. After Trump declared your country to be a country of particular concern for failing to deal with the threat of Christians, does your government only spring into action when it is internationally shamed into doing so?
Unfortunately for you, 6 months before that, we arrested the leaders of La Kurawa and Boko Haram. Some months before that, we killed a certain number of terrorists that the U.S. government, State Department, commended Nigeria. The U.S. Embassy celebrated the fact of the exploits of Nigeria before Donald Trump said that.
But again, he shamed you, and you declared a national emergency. You didn't do it before he shamed you.
We declared the national emergency 6 months before Donald Trump's statement.
No, that's not true.
The president
it was in November of 2025.
No. Much earlier, around, I think, April or May, the president declared national emergency on insecurity.
But the actual national emergency was in November.
How can it be actual?
People can look this up. Let's talk about kidnappings. The world remembers Chibok in 2014, when 276 schoolgirls were taken by the militant group Boko Haram. Very little has changed, unfortunately, in Nigeria. Just last November, 250 students and staff were kidnapped from St. Mary's Catholic School in Niger State. 2 years into Tinubu's presidency, Nigerian research firm SBM Intelligence said, and I quote, "Nigeria's kidnap for ransom crisis has consolidated into a structured, profit-seeking industry." That's embarrassing for your country that you have a kidnapping industry.
I agree with the fact that the insecurity associated with kidnapping has now become a crisis economy. But much more than that, I know of our government's effort in dealing with that insecurity. If you have a little understanding of the nature and the boundary and the geographical measurement of Nigeria and the tendency for insecurity to come in, then you will understand that we're fighting a hydra-headed insecurity situation. With respect to the kidnapping of children, the government has taken measures already. We've introduced what we call Save the School, where students and schools that are in remote places where there is no security are brought back into state capital where they get the education that they need.
But Nigerian people don't believe you. 2 out of 3 Nigerians say that
Where did
security...
you get that information?
Africa Barometer. May of 2024, 2 out of 3 Nigerians say security agencies are handling the abduction of Nigerians fairly badly or very badly. 1 in 3 Nigerians say they personally know someone who's been kidnapped.
Yeah, you have
These are stunning statistics. Amnesty, Human Rights Watch have lined up to say that you have allowed impunity to flourish, you have failed to apply lessons from previous attacks, damning indictments of your security service.
I put it to you, that's not what they said.
That's not what Amnesty said?
Yes. Amnesty...
I've literally got the quote right here.
Quote it.
The authorities' failure has allowed impunity to flourish and the killings to spread to many parts of the country.
Source.
Amnesty International, February 8th, 2026.
Well, I'm not aware of that one.
You're not aware of that one?
I am aware. I'm aware.
At the weekend, you put out a video to music of you and a team researching and prepping for this show. And yet every time I've asked you something, you say, I'm not aware of that. What were you researching in that video?
You're really funny. Let me tell you this.
I'll ask you a serious question. Amnesty International, you asked me for a source, I read out the source. You asked me for a date, I read out the date. What's your response other than picking up glasses of water?
No, Amnesty has a history of calling everything bad.
Well, one thing about trying to defend something that is very difficult to defend is that you may land yourself into another trouble. And the truth remains that the job he is doing is almost an impossible job. How can you agree to do such job? These guys have all the records. They have dig deep. They know the international community knows us more than we know ourselves. That is the truth about that. Let's continue.
Okay.
I think
that's what every authoritarian government in the world has said.
What is Amnesty's report about US?
Bad.
Not just bad. You didn't use the word bad. You read.
Yeah,
what
very
bad.
Say? Governments who do bad things, they all criticize human rights groups.
No.
Yeah, they do. I do this
that.
for a living. Let's ask about corruption before we go to our panel who are waiting patiently here. Transparency International, they say systemic corruption continues to plague the defense sector, causes a major hindrance to security. President Tinubu said in August, there is no more corruption in Nigeria. That's a ridiculous thing to say, is it not?
We investigated a case of corruption, not just in the defense, but anywhere in government. This administration has had lots of people who are in government, either sacked or investigated and being prosecuted. The resolve of our administration in dealing with corruption is obvious.
Why did he say there's no more corruption?
You probably read him out of context.
No, I didn't.
No, read exactly what he said. You're cherry picking. How can someone just stand and say there is no corruption in Nigeria?
It is getting clearer to the people. We have more money to the economy and no more corruption. Full stop, close quote.
Good. So this is the context. He was communicating to the people about the exploit we're having as a result of the decision to remove fuel subsidy. We dealt with the question of corruption in the oil industry.
And that's not what he said, but okay, he didn't say anything about the oil industry.
That's why I say context matters.
Well, you can't just make up the context. He didn't say anything about the oil industry. He said we have more money to the economy and no more corruption. In fact, he was criticized in Nigeria for this. Last question on this. How can Nigerians take Tinubu seriously on eliminating corruption when he appoints someone like Abubakar Bagudu as Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, a man who, according to the US Justice Department, with others, embezzled, misappropriated, defrauded, and extorted billions with a B from the government of Nigeria under the dictator Sani Abacha. Bagudu avoided criminal charges. He cut a deal with the Nigerian government, returned some of the money. But the president literally put Nigeria's budget in the hands of a man who's accused of looting billions of dollars.
You started your introduction by saying it's a sovereign country. The decision of the court in the United States does not bind the Supreme Court of Nigeria.
But he gave $163 million. And that man is now in charge of the Nigerian budget. You're okay with that?
Do
you think it's funny? I mean,
no,
two-thirds of Nigerians...
You don't think it's funny?
No, I don't. I think people who are giving $163 million back shouldn't be in charge of the country's budget.
Thank you for your observation.
Okay, but do you think they should be in charge of the budget?
There's no evidence that that minister has misappropriated funds in the government of Nigeria.
Why did he give back $163 million?
To Nigeria or to the U.S. government?
Nigeria.
Why did the U.S. government give him $100 million?
It's settlement. That's what you do in settlements.
Okay.
Why was he settling?
Yeah, so
okay. So you're comfortable with a guy who is accused by the U.S. Justice Department of embezzling with the Sani Abacha regime billions of dollars being in charge of the budget
Are
today?
you okay with a president of one of the countries in the world who was convicted by the courts in that land and the person is still governing the country?
Who are you referring
No,
to?
I'm just asking.
But which country?
Okay, are you also okay? Are you also okay?
Because if it's Donald Trump, I'm a well-known Trump supporter.
Are you also okay with the Prime Minister of a country who was accused of making a wrong judgment in an appointment that led to a lot of problem, but he has not resigned, he's still governing? Are you okay with that?
Well, by the time this show airs, he may have resigned. So your argument
now
that
Keir Starmer
and Donald Trump, basically everyone else is corrupt. Okay. Let's go to our panel on that. I'm joined by Aisha Osori, a lawyer and writer with the Open Society Foundations. Aisha, how would you rank this government's record when it comes to security?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say 1. And I think one thing that I haven't heard in the conversation so far is that since President Tinubu came into office, we have no diplomatic presence in any of the major capitals. And the reason why this is tied to insecurity, for example, let's use our borders with Chad, Niger, Cameroon. When you have no diplomatic presence in those areas, then you're not able to engage on the insecurity. We talked about kidnapping a few minutes ago. There must be a link between the atrocious amounts of money that are being raised by kidnappers. Over $1 billion in 2024, according to the
ransoms.
From ransoms. That must be what's fueling the insecurity. So there's a link between the kidnapping industry and the rising insecurity. So killing a bunch of terrorists while constantly there's a wave of terrorists coming in through the borders from Chad, from Niger. Again, another thing that's been alleged is that President Tinubu's bad handling of the coup in Niger, where he said we were going to attack them, was one of the triggers for these countries, Niger and Burkina Faso, leaving ECOWAS. I'm just saying all that is connected.
Yes. So let me bring in Tunde Doherty, who's the UK chairman of the All Progressives Congress Party, the party of the president. What is your response to Aisha when she says 1 out of 10 security rating for your country?
Definitely. What Aisha is saying, well, does not really have bearing. We have the diplomat that does fulfill the policies of government. And in terms of the security situation we're talking about in Nigeria, it's not today's thing. And we must look at the solutions that this government has put into force. You find out that the security architecture in Nigeria has been changed. We talk about the collaboration between the government and the United States in terms of dealing with insurgencies right there and then. Because, you know, Nigerians don't manufacture most of this high-tech required equipment to deal with such situations. The president, the government, is really doing quite fantastic work in making sure that they fight these insurgents, collaborating with all factors or all countries that is ready to work with them.
Let's bring in Anu Adeoye, a journalist for the Financial Times who recently covered Nigeria and West Africa. Anu, we can't talk about insecurity without also talking about the economy and the underlying social economic issues. Is the average Nigerian both safer and better off under President Tinubu?
The obvious answer is no, right? And before I get to that, I want to talk to what Daniel said. I always find it very interesting with Nigerian government officials who cherry pick statistics about the US and the UK, but they never say how many hours of uninterrupted electricity has the United States had compared to how many Nigeria has had. They never try and find, you know, the good statistics that Nigerians don't benefit from. If you look at the poverty numbers, this is according to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. More than 120 million Nigerians are living in multi-dimensional poverty. So that's not just people who lack $2 a day. That's people who can't afford food, who can't afford shelter. And even if you look at the numbers of the people who have died, right? These are wartime numbers for a country that is officially not at war. And so I think it's really, really difficult to make an argument and say, you know, things are trending in the right direction.
Casualty numbers, wrong direction. Poverty numbers, wrong direction.
Right. You know, we were very clear with the Nigerian people when the decision was made. It will bring discomfort temporarily, but the long term is what we are promising. We decided to also involve intervention mechanism in dealing with some of the hardship that the people undergo. Now, when that decision was made in May 2023, it was hellish. But as I speak to you today, the numbers, the indices, and the stats are favorable to the economic reform that we have introduced. Our foreign reserve has increased substantially. Our net import dependency went down. Our export production capacity has gone up. Our naira is strengthened. We have provided opportunities for families who could not afford to send their kids to school to access grant and go and have their education, cost of fee, tuition fee, as well as the cost of living.
You mentioned school. 20,000 schools in Nigeria have been shut in the last few months because of these kidnapping attacks.
Correct.
18 million Nigerian school children are not going to school, according to the UN. That is the highest number anywhere in the world.
Because
are you proud of that?
No, I'm not proud of that because of insecurity. But the measures we're taking now, we're restoring them back to their schools. And some of them whose schools are located in places where there are no governed spaces, we're bringing them back into towns. So when you give out your stats or your opinion about an issue, also incorporate this fact so that the viewer will look at, yes, there is an obvious fact that because of the policy decision that it brought kind of untold hardship, but also we are making progress in this regard.
So I agree with you. That's a fair point. We should look at things in the round, and you pointed out things you've done well. But then you need to do the same thing. Do you accept then that the poverty numbers are going in the wrong direction?
Yeah, sure. It's like
that's the crucial one for a lot of Nigerians.
No, but numbers don't lie.
141 million people in 2026 are going to be living in poverty in Nigeria. 62% of the population.
Then I explain to you why. Context matters.
I agree context matters. It's a failure. What you did produced 62% in poverty.
So the IMF, the World Bank, and the Brentwood, they have applauded the reform decision we took. Now, tell me one country of the world that will introduce that kind of reform and there won't be consequential effect in terms of hardship. Even in the United Kingdom, as we speak, there is a cost of living crisis. Are you aware?
No, I'm not aware of that. Okay. Let me bring Anu back in from the FT. Is that a fair point that Daniel makes, that the IMF, the World Bank are praising what we're doing and actions have consequences?
Yeah, look, I think ultimately those reforms had to happen, right? There was chronic mismanagement at the central bank. The government before the Tinubu government was an APC government, so it's the same party. So, you know, there's only so much blame they can pass around. Yes. This fuel subsidy, you had to do something. It was riddled with corruption. But then the other part of that argument is doing those reforms should not be the end goal. It should only be the starting point. What you need ultimately is foreign direct investment in Nigeria. You need people to bring money into Nigeria to invest long term.
Robust foreign direct investment in Nigeria.
Let me bring in Tunde. Tunde, Anu makes the point, it's all APC governments. So you can't really blame previous government. This is all your party has presided over the situation in Nigeria. Do you
Definitely. That's why you have a president that is economically reliable to put the economy in the right trajectory. This is the first time you see people rushing to come and invest in Nigeria because of the key economic reshaping surgery that is taking place in Nigeria. So you can tell that Nigeria of yesterday is not Nigeria of today.
We have to go to the break, but last word to Aisha.
I think it's telling that we're talking about IMF and World Bank as if their approval is sort of a good thing. When we talk about the fact that we live in a neoliberal world, and we're talking about the same institutions that make forced structural adjustment programs down the throats of so many countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, we shouldn't be praising the fact that they think these reforms are good. But I put that aside. What do the average Nigerians think about their lives? All that seems to matter to the Tinubu administration and past ones is the approval of the West. And I think this conversation between you and Daniel bears that out. It's what the US says, it's what the IMF says, it's not what Nigerians say.
Okay. So you see, you praise, just 1 second.
We've got to go to the break.
That's excellent, yes, excellent. Yeah. You praise the idea, you praise the idea of a Western institutions report about Nigeria insofar as the situation is bad. When we praise the idea of a Western institution that before now said something against Nigeria, but now is saying Nigeria is trying, then that is not necessary.
Well, I think Amnesty International is a human rights group and the IMF is a neoliberal institution.
And they're all Western.
They're all
Western institutions.
All right, well, we're all cherry picking apparently. Let's go to the break. In part 2 of Head to Head, we will talk about President Tinubu, his wealth, his leadership style, and what it means for democracy with Daniel Bwala. Don't go away. Welcome back to Head on Al Jazeera. My guest today is Daniel Bwala, Special Advisor to President Tinubu of Nigeria. Let's talk more about your boss, President Tinubu. He's been on the political scene in Nigeria for decades, first as governor of Lagos and now as president since 2023. He's a very rich man in a very impoverished country, and there's a lot of mystery as to where he got his wealth, estimated to be in the billions of dollars. What do you say to people who highlight allegations against him of, quote, massive corruption and misappropriation of funds?
That's their opinion.
Actually, it's your opinion. In January 2023, you talked about the legal petition against him that involves, quote, massive corruption and misappropriation of funds. You were in the opposition and were very critical of his wealth.
Exactly verbatim what I said, because what you just said is not a true representation.
January 22nd, 2023, you said the petition against him involves massive corruption and misappropriation of funds belonging to the government of Lagos State, abuse of official office, conflict of interest.
I'm glad you said the petition against him.
Yeah.
Yeah, document that was taken to court.
That you highlighted.
I wasn't the one that went to court. And at that time, where was I?
You were an opposition member.
Thank you.
So should we not trust you when you say things as an opposition
What is the
member?
job of opposition?
To oppose?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you know it.
For the sake of opposing?
No, that's what you're adding.
I mean, you didn't just say that.
No, go to Westminster on Wednesday by 9 o'clock.
Okay.
You'll understand the job of the opposition.
You can do whataboutism all day, that's fine. You also said that, well, you know what doesn't happen in Westminster in the US Congress?
I know what does happen.
Well, I'm telling you what doesn't happen. Politicians don't accuse other politicians of setting up a militia.
They also accuse the governing party
you said at the time,
on mistake in judgment in appointing someone that eventually turned out to be somebody in the FC.
Yeah, if you think that this is comparable to Starmer and Mandelson, good luck to you if that's your defense tonight. You said at the time that Tinubu started a militia to sway the election corruptly and that they even threatened you. So how can we take anything seriously you say tonight in his defense?
Your opinion, Nigerians...
So my opinion is your opinion. Sorry, Daniel, it's your opinion.
That was litigated in Nigeria to conclusion, and then as a country we moved on. We are more interested about the deliverables that we have for the Nigerian people, and we look for opportunities.
Nigerians are very concerned about corruption, and Tinubu, you said this, Tinubu and his people created a militia. This is the first time in the history of Nigeria we've seen a political party creating a militant arm leading to election. Your words, January 2023.
Context is everything.
There is no context.
I'm coming. You are quoting the things I said when I was in the opposition.
And I understand that's uncomfortable for you, but you did say them. If you want to disown them, that's fine.
I'm okay for you to ask anything I've ever said.
So does he have a militia that tried to kill you?
He doesn't have. I never said he tried to kill me.
I myself have received threats from him and his camp. Your words.
I never said that.
You didn't say that at a press conference on January 22nd, 2023. You're just denying.
I never said that.
Who said it then? A lookalike?
No, I don't know what you meant by that. I know I complained at the time.
You said
about the conduct of election.
It is not my fault that I am able to recall your words in a way you can't.
But it will be your fault
Tinubu,
when you read it out of context. Yeah.
If we go home late tonight, context.
Yes.
Tinubu and his people created a militia. This is the first time in the history of Nigeria we've seen a political party creating a militant arm and leading to election. He advised his people should grab by all means necessary the process leading to elections, that they created this militia shortly after that. We have seen violence in Nigeria, and I myself have received threats from him and his camp.
Tinubu never created a militia. Tinubu is one of the foremost politicians in Nigerian history.
Tinubu and his people created
democracy.
A militia. Who said those words, Daniel?
Tinubu has helped in strengthening democracy in Nigeria.
Tinubu and his people created a militia, Daniel. Who said those words?
Tinubu brought in leadership skills into governance.
Tinubu and his people created a militia. Who said those words?
Tinubu and his people never created the militias.
So why did you say they did on January 22nd, 2023?
I never said that.
Let's keep going, since you're denying words that came out of your mouth. Let's quote some other folks. The Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project named President Tinubu a finalist for the 2024 Corrupt Person of the Year award. According to a 2025 poll, 2 out of 3 Nigerians think the president and his team are involved in corruption.
That's a statement from drunken people. Next question.
2 out of 3 Nigerians are drunk.
No, start with the first one. What would you say the first time?
The first one was the OCCR reporting project.
They are the drunken people.
Okay, what about the Nigerians? Are they sober? Are 2 out of 3 Nigerians sober when they say you're president and you were involved in corruption?
Nigerians are entitled to hold and express opinion.
Yes,
it is in our constitution. The fact that you express an opinion does not substantiate that opinion.
I agree, but that's their opinion. You accept that 2 out of 3 Nigerians think that your government is corrupt.
I would be happy if you can tell me a finding of court that says Tinubu is corrupt.
Well, what's interesting you should say that, because a lot of Nigerians have reason to suspect that his wealth was built on illicit activity.
A lot of English people have complained about the Prime Minister.
You can
a
talk
lot
about
of Americans have
all night long,
there is no country of the world where the people aren't complaining about their leaders.
All right.
Oh my God, see defense. There is nowhere in the world that people don't complain about their government. So why are your people leaving your country, going to other countries, even to other African countries? Why? Why are the other countries not coming to your own country to stay? And your country is running out. Now people, your country are not agreeing to join army again. They are now begging the Southeasterners to come and join army, Nigerian army.
That's how
I love it when you set these challenges. Can you find me a country in the world where the sitting president, the US government seized $500,000 from one of their Chicago bank accounts after investigators found probable cause that the funds were proceeds of drug trafficking, specifically heroin. Tinubu gave up the money in a settlement. He was never indicted of a crime. But when a US judge last year ordered the release of all of the documents by the FBI, Tinubu went to court to prevent it. What does he have to hide?
The minute a matter is taken to court by right, you have the right to send your lawyer. The fact that you send a lawyer to defend your matter or to go against a motion that is filed before the court is not a conclusive proof of acceptance of the fact
he's obviously got something
that was
to hide.
taken to the court.
He gave up $500,000, which were probably the proceeds of drug trafficking.
I'm glad you used the word probably, but it is not. Go ahead.
You said in 2022 that this drug case, quote, conclusively concluded not in favor of Bwala because he had to forfeit that money. There is still a cloud around drug-related activity.
Cloud?
Yeah.
Not a conclusion.
Okay, so the cloud's still there for a lot of Nigerians.
No, the cloud is no longer there.
How did it disappear?
Because the Nigerian people have moved on with the president.
Who said they moved on?
The facts are there.
Less than 10% of Nigerian voters voted for him. So
he
doesn't have some big mandate from the people that means that I can't ask you, why did he give back $500,000 to the US government, which were believed to be the proceeds of drug trafficking, and you believed they were the proceeds of drug trafficking?
Why do you conduct a polling with 500 people and give a representation of the population?
You're now questioning all polls. Is that your defense?
No, I just said the point. You heard me well.
Well, you don't trust the Nigerian people.
I trust the Nigerian people.
This idea of drugs and narcotics is a terrible case all over the world. And if someone has that questionable character and is elected as president, what it means is that it will embolden people who are into those activities. That is why this person has to come out clean. You said those words.
If somebody has that, thank God he doesn't have.
How do we know he didn't come out clean? You said he has to come out clean in 2022.
Okay, let me put it this way. This fact was litigated.
No, it wasn't.
This fact was litigated in the Nigerian court, and the apex court of the land, the Supreme Court of Nigeria, whose decision is not appealable to any court outside Nigeria, held that this case has not been established against him.
Your words were that there's still a cloud around them because it was not conclusively concluded
My word
in favor
and the judgment of the Supreme Court, which one is relevant? In the Constitution of Nigeria, all the decision of the Supreme Court bind all authorities and people throughout the Federation. That's what matters.
The fact that he had laundered drug money, most likely in his US bank account, is not an issue for you now. It was an issue for you a few years ago. It's suddenly not an issue when you go to work for the man. How convenient.
The court has held the allegation that was put up in the petition against him could not be substantiated.
Well, the US hasn't held that. And in fact, the US court tried to release all the files, and the president rushed to stop them from doing that. Innocent people, is that what they do?
What stopped them from releasing it?
Is innocent
what
people?
stopped them from releasing it?
It's ongoing in the courts.
I'm glad you said ongoing.
But
so let's wait until when it's...
Do innocent people try and stop files from being released about themselves?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I'm sure the Nigerian people
privacy. Do you... I'm coming. If a case is taken to court against you, even when you know you are not liable, will you be comfortable that the order of court will permit the release of privacy issue relating to you?
Yeah, if people think I have drug money in my bank and I don't, then yes, I would do everything I can to...
Unfortunately, people do not.
Tinubu is not just super rich. It's what he does with his wealth. In 2019, 2 armored money trucks, bullion vans, were seen going into his house, coming out of his house. Where did that money go?
No. Point, did you see the money? Or those who reported, did they see money inside the bullion van?
Was there no money in the bullion vans?
This is to tell you how terrible things are happening. Just imagine. Okay, he went to court to stop the release of the documents. Why? What are you hiding? You would have allowed the court to release the documents now. Now they said bullion van entered. He said, did you see the money inside bullion? So bullion van will just enter without money coming in or money going out. Eh? Is that how we do in this country?
Well, how am I to know?
You said it was money in the vans at the time.
I never
2023, February. You
how could I have known
it's a tragedy that I know your words better than you do. There is only one person in Nigeria who is alleged to have moved money through bullion vans, and that person is the presidential candidate. You said that on February 17th on Channels Television, 2023.
Thank you for notifying me.
So where did the money go from the bullion vans?
There was no money inside.
So why did you say there was?
I said there was no money inside.
But you said, at the time you said he's the only person to have moved money in bullion vans.
When did I say that? What was the event in Nigeria?
Oh, so you were lying because it was an election campaign?
No, I never said that. I said, how can you prove that just because a bullion van goes into a person's house and comes out that there is money inside?
Maybe because people said it was vote buying by Tinubu. Tinubu himself said, I gave money to the people. You know he said that?
Yes, I also give money to people.
When you give money
myself.
to people would say that's vote buying. Politicians, rich politicians give poor people money.
No, he doesn't give money to people on election day, but he helps people.
But people at the time said it was vote buying. Do you agree with that?
Who are the people?
You said,
no, I never
ostensibly,
said that.
I can't believe you still keep walking into this. You said it was done ostensibly for vote buying. Do you agree with Daniel Bwala or not? Please don't lift up a glass of water. On the eve of the presidential elections, 2 cash-laden bullion vans, your words, were seen on the premises, which was ostensibly for vote buying. Your words, January 22nd, 2023. Have you just disowned everything you've said in order to work for this president?
I'm coming. What you just said now, I want to put it on record, on my own honor. That's not what I said.
So far you've denied 2 things.
This one I said, that's not what I said.
Before you said it too. Let's just keep count.
Let me tell you what you do. You will have an idea of a phrase or a word in a sentence. They coin the other part of it to project what you want to push out.
I read the entire sentence to you.
No, but that's wrong.
No. Let's read it again. Wrong. On the eve of the presidential elections at Lagos, 2 cash-laden bullion vans, your words, were seen on his premises located on 26 Borderland Street, which was ostensibly for vote buying. Your words. You can just say I don't agree with what I said, then I was lying for political purposes.
Agree with what you said, yeah?
No, with what you said. In fact, in 2023, you said that he bought his election. Did he buy his election?
At the time, I thought. But when it was litigated in court, the court found out he didn't.
So you thought he was vote buying, and now you don't. You thought he bought his election, now you don't. In fact, you said it was so corrupt, the 2023 election, Tinubu's win, you said that you couldn't eat food for 3 days.
I never said that. Where?
Arise News, March 2nd, 2023. I became so sick for the past 3 days, I found it very hard eating food.
I'm sure you have a mistaken identity. I never said that.
You never said that you became sick.
Why will I not eat? Win, lose, or draw. You eat your food and go to bed.
I'm going to spend a lot of time enjoying social media after this show is done.
Go ahead. You're welcome.
Let's turn to our panel, who are waiting patiently once again. I'm joined by Anu Adeoye, a journalist for the Financial Times who's covered Nigeria. Anu, we've talked a lot about President Tinubu and the allegations of corruption, including from Daniel Bwala, which he's now pretending he didn't make. Allegedly, okay. You recently described him as a wily political tactician. How does he wield power? Daniel and others have accused him of vote buying in the past. How does he wield power in your view?
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to understand the context of Nigerian politics, right? And this isn't specifically about Daniel, because he used to be in the opposition, now he works for the president in the APC.
Well, he used to be in the APC, then he was in the opposition, now he's back in the APC, and he doesn't remember anything he said when he was in the opposition.
And I think the crucial context here is Nigerian politics is ideology-free.
Yes.
Right? There's no left or right, as it were. It's mostly, unfortunately, about, people call it stomach infrastructure in Nigeria, and self-interest. And ultimately, if you're someone like the president who, for all his many faults, I think is someone who sees Nigerian politicians for what they are. They are self-interested people. And if you can tap into that, it's very, very easy to get people to come on side. I have a question for Daniel, right? It's like, what made you from saying all of those things that you now disavow? What was the grand vision that made you decide, I want to work for this guy?
First of all, I left him after the primaries because he made a choice of a Muslim ticket. And I thought at the time that would be injurious to the interests of the Christian minorities. I made that decision. And I campaigned against him. And after the election, for the next 1 year, I was critiquing policies of the president. But I saw from January right up to December how this president patiently introduced policies and continued to engage Nigerians across all platforms in a bid to push Nigeria forward. I became impressive about it, and I made a choice to do that. Just in the same way that Mehdi Hassan has worked with BBC, has worked with Sky News, then with MSNBC, and then back to Seteo. Evolution of people's life.
The worst analogy
Evolution of people's life.
In 14 years of doing head-to-head. What are you talking about? Somebody changing their job from one company to another is not the same as you saying he's a corrupt man who created a militia, bought an election, and now I work for him, and I only said that stuff because it was the opposition.
All of the things you said, you couldn't substantiate them.
I substantiated all of it.
No, you have not.
Let's go to Aisha Osori from the Open Society Foundations. Aisha, in 2023, on the eve of the presidential elections, you wrote an article calling Nigeria a competitive authoritarian state that barely qualifies as a democracy. What do you mean by that, and what role has President Tinubu played in making that better or worse?
Well, he's done nothing to make it better. Definitely, our democracy is a lot worse off in 2026 than it was in 2023.
How so?
Well, for one thing, we had a stronger opposition in 2015 when the APC came in, but thanks to President Buhari and now President Tinubu, we have 30 out of 36 states are now APC, which is not necessarily a good thing because that means we have no opposition. PDP, the People's Democratic Party, has been virtually destroyed. The Labour Party has been destroyed. We literally have no political parties anymore. Another thing that we don't have is any separation of powers between the legislature and the judiciary.
Tunde Doherty is here, the UK chairman of the All Progressives Congress Party, the president's party. Aisha says that your party is turning Nigeria basically into a one-party state.
I disagree with her. I want people to know something about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Before the man comes to government, he was an accountant. He has a very high-paying job. He was working with Mobile before he came to politics.
Before Mobile? He said he worked for Deloitte.
Yes.
He made a lot of money from Deloitte, he said.
Yes.
Deloitte says they have no record of him ever working for them.
If you know him before he came to politics, he's such a very generous, very rich man. Before he came into politics,
Deloitte say they have no record of him working?
You remember he was a senator.
Tunde, why does Deloitte say they have no record of the man working for them?
That is not the right thing because there are oppositions working against to bring the man down. But I can tell you...
Not sure Deloitte is part of the Nigerian opposition.
No, you can't, because all of these things emanate from the opposition point of view to bring the man down. But they have forgotten this man is the symbol of Nigerian democracy that we have today. He fought the military to the standstill during the Adeko period. He made sure that there's no politician in Nigeria today that will say he did not have a Tinubu tonic in his political stability in Nigeria.
Before we go to the audience, I've been waiting patiently
here. As a fact check, Deloitte denied that they said he never worked for them. Go ahead.
Okay. You have said in the past, I don't even know why I'm bothering, that when was this man born? We don't know where he was born. He doesn't tell us anything. You complained about this. Now you work for him. Has he told you his birthday?
If you don't know when someone was born, first of all, he must have been born before me. I guess you know that. And secondly, my not knowing when he was born, does that have a consequential effect on his birth?
You said it did at the time when you raised it as an issue.
Does it have a consequential effect on his birth?
And do you now know where he was born?
I don't know.
Still? Okay. Let's go to our patient audience here in London's Conway Hall. Let's go to the lady here in the front row first.
In 2023, President Tinubu promised Nigerians constant electricity within 4 years, saying Nigerians shouldn't vote for him if he failed. Yet the national grid has suffered repeated collapses, including twice in January 2026. What is the government doing right now to stabilize the grid and improve reliability?
Yeah, the government has actually strengthened the partnership between the private sector and the public sector. You should know that we took up reforms in the power industry that has allowed the private sector to be fully involved. Some of the state governments have even reached an agreement where they have off-grid and they run their own electricity company in their respective states. So the progress is being made, and I can assure you, by the end of this first time, you would have seen very obvious change that you'll be happy about.
Should people not vote for him if the electricity situation continues to be bad? That's what he said.
They will make the decision when that comes, when that time comes.
Okay, let's go back to the audience. Let's go to the gentleman there with the hat. Yep.
Why should young and emerging Nigerian politicians believe that merit and not connection or lobbying determines their political relevance in the Nigeria of today?
I can tell you that lots of young Nigerians are excited by the prospect of the renaissance in terms of growth, development, and opportunity that the Nigerian government and its policies has provided for them. That's why you see lots of them, they are sending remittances. Some of them are even coming to invest in the tech industry. So Nigerian people understand that in this administration, only merit. The president doesn't need to know who you are. If you have the right idea, that administration will provide the enabling environment for you to thrive.
Daniel, an overwhelming majority of young people see their country moving in the wrong direction in Nigeria, 91%.
What is the source?
The Afrobarometer survey from last summer.
I question the authenticity of that report.
Do you still think this government is a nepotistic government?
No, it is not.
You said it was in the past.
And I'm now saying it is not.
Okay. Let's go back to the audience. Yes, woman in the third row there, yes?
I was delighted to hear that you said that you have rid the oil industry of corruption. Given that fact, why is it that you allowed the oil companies, the oil majors who've been working in the Niger Delta for the last 70 years to exit without dealing with the corruption, pollution problem that has riddled the lives of Niger Deltans, who are paying the cost, but without the companies being made to foot the bill?
Yeah, so all the foreign oil companies that invested in Nigeria, they did so based on the agreement they have with the government. When this government came on board, we introduced reforms, including in the energy sector. Some of the companies who felt they couldn't bear, because most of the investigation found out, most of them were just rent seekers over the years in successive government. And so we decided that you have to play by the book. And they were not comfortable, they left. You don't have control over their decision. But in the same vein, shortly after that, you see lots of foreign companies that are coming to Nigeria to invest.
Okay, let's go back to the audience. Let's go to, yes, gentleman there with the jumper there, yes.
The current chair of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Joash Amopitan, made some disparaging and stereotypical remarks about the Hausa Fulani people of northern Nigeria, specifically the Muslims. Do you think he is morally justified to continue occupying such a sensitive position, given the kind of remarks he made?
My apologies to you for if such a statement was made to any group at all in Nigeria. It is not acceptable. This government promotes tolerance amongst Nigerians. We also understand the need for the president and the federal government to avoid interfering on institutions of government. I will be happy to follow up with this point you've raised, if at all such a thing happened.
All right, I'm going to go to the lady at the back, yeah.
You've been on different sides of the political spectrum over the years. How do you personally decide when to change your position? And how should the public make sense of that without us losing trust in you?
Yeah, politics is dynamic. it is anchored on both national interest and personal interest. And when you make a decision at any given time, there must be a factor, what led to your decision. And in this case, I told you I made the decision to leave the president because of the Muslim ticket. And after the election, we now go into governance. I see the president introducing reforms that were necessary for the growth of Nigeria. I made a U-turn to support him. I think that is the basic component of a human being, your ability to decide otherwise if you feel the facts are there. Facts can change opinion. And in this case, facts change my opinion.
Isn't he running on a Muslim ticket next year?
Whatever he decides, I will trust his judgment, because after he made the decision, we do not see as evidence the maltreatment or disenfranchisement of the Christian minority.
Okay. Let's take a last question. Gentleman in the second row, you've been waiting a while.
I wanted to ask about vigilantes, because if we look at rural communities across the country, often they are the main security providers. So how exactly is your administration working with them to enhance community protection in rural communities while minimizing abuses of power?
The president has encouraged the governors to continue to participate with law enforcement in their state for training, for intelligence gathering, and in some limited cases for them to form a community vanguard. Most of these states where you see these skirmishes or problem in the past, those ones have stopped. What we are now seeing as insecurity is insurgency, terrorism, and Boko Haram. And once it is a terrorist activity in any country, just like in NATO, they say attack on one is attack on all. When it becomes terrorism, then it is the responsibility of the entire nations of the world to fight that and not to be doing blame fixing.
Last question from me, Daniel. I know you don't trust any polls, but most Nigerians, I think, would agree. The ones that are in your favor, of course. But most polls show that Nigerians are very unhappy with politics, with the government, with the establishment. They're very unhappy about corruption. President Tinubu campaigned under the slogan, "It's my turn," which many critics would say is symbolic of the Nigerian establishment, that people just hand out jobs between themselves. You said in 2022 that Tinubu made the presidency about himself when, quote, "It's not about the people." Can we end the show in agreement that what's happening in Nigeria right now is not about the people?
After he won the election, he made it clear by his conduct, action, and executive act that it is about the interests of the Nigerian people.
But he ran on, "It's my turn." Should really
he
run
He actually did not run. It was a statement he made before the primaries. Your facts are not correct.
You criticized him for it, Daniel.
Yes, and I changed my mind. Do you change your mind in life?
I do change my mind. Remember, I moved from the BBC to Sky to...
Thank you.
All right, by now, I think we are getting to the end of this discussion, and I am still Chinedu until I come your way next time. Please, if you have anything you want to drop in the comment, please drop it. Let's hear you. Thank you.